Troy Miller is the president and CEO of the NRB, the National Religious Broadcasters. Convention is coming up. Not an easy time for you, Troy, and I don't think I'd want to be in your shoes. But honestly, there are thousands of people that are coming very shortly, and they are very excited about what you have planned. So take a few moments and what are you planning?
Well, look, this is the largest gathering of Christian communicators that will happen anywhere this year and really anywhere around the world. So we have a number of things planned as usual. We'll have our opening session. We're going to talk about the state of broadcasting. We're going to talk about a number of initiatives that we have going on, including Israel, Christian persecution, veterans ministries. A big project we're working with, America Reads the Bible. So we'll hit all of those. And then throughout the week, we have our stages. We have three, now four different stages that'll all be going on. We have our what we call our forums stages, and we'll talk about all the key issues from the legal landscape, what's going on in the courts, what's going on legislative wise, what's going on in the culture, mainstream media, all of those things. We have experts coming in all of those areas. We'll do a number of panels there each day. And then we move down to what we call our talks and workshops, a little more hands on. We have hundreds of sessions going on there. We have a full stage dedicated to AI. So we have that. And then our big fun event, we're going to celebrate America's 250th anniversary. We'll do that on Thursday evening. We can't announce everybody yet. We have some great speakers lined up. It's just going to be a real fun night. PragerU is with us. The David and Tim Barton from Wall Builders, Coral Ridge Ministries, and just a number of other people. And Seth Dillon from the Babylon Bee will be with us. So look, a lot of activities. Of course, Felice, you can't forget our incredible exhibit floor, over 230 exhibitors, covering two different rooms now this year. We actually had to expand into another room. And on the exhibit floor, working with the America 250 team, will be one of these mobile trucks that's going to be running around the nation, which is kind of a moving museum to talk about America's history and a heavily focus on the Judeo-Christian influence to America's founding.
I'm glad you brought that up because the NRB has a different look than it did decades ago. It was a lot all about the Christians, and now it's not just Christians, it's Christians and Jews and I'd even say, other minorities. It's amazing what the NRB looks like today. What do you attribute the shift? Because when you look at the polarization that goes on in the United States, it's not the same United States as 250 years ago. So, how do you juxtapose the two?
Well, it might be a little more similar to 250 years ago. There was quite a bit of controversies between the states as they formed the Constitutional Congress, but they all came together. That was the key. They all came together. They understood the importance of unity that it was going to take for this American experiment to work. I think we are seeing a lot of that today. You're right. It's not that kind of America. Those differences were on, fundamental kind of execution things, not core doctrines or core policies that were there. Today, we're a very divided country. It's not the country of 3 or 4 decades ago. Even we don't have the same kinds of cooperation that we've seen. We're really polarized. Really, just have the us versus them. But at NRB, we've worked specifically over the last several years to build more unity in the body of Christ and to build it in the church and to expand that, as you said, to our Jewish brothers and sisters and to other groups as well. We've had several folks from the Catholic Church that will be with us. We're very solid together on pro-life, pro-family issues. There, we are going to be doing a press statement about Iran, standing in solidarity with the people of Iran. And of course, Christian persecution that's going on around the globe, again, is a huge issue. So I think there's a lot more we're getting to that people are finding out that unite us rather than divide us.
I'm going to bring up anti-Semitism and hate for a moment because it's pounding away. It hasn't stopped for a moment. And what's interesting is that the Christians are coming out on behalf of the Jews. So when someone says they hate the Jew, are they also hating the Christian?
Absolutely. Absolutely. If it's in our Christian understanding of where we fit in as believers, that was the first term that was attached to Christians. They were just attached as called believers, believing in the Messiah. They were all Jewish to begin with. And so, as we understand the roots and the foundation and the connection between our two groups, when you say Jewish hate, you really are saying right under your breath Christian hate as well. And look, when we were there last fall, not only have Christians spoken out about Jewish hate and anti-Semitism, but we were so pleased this holiday season around Christmas when the Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu spoke out about Christian persecution and protecting Christians around the globe and Israel's commitment to that. When I was there, the Deputy Foreign Minister Sharon Haskell spoke out about it, and she talked about Christians is somewhere in the world experiencing an October 7th every day. And so we've really seen this on both sides really coming together to protect one another. And quite honestly, we need that. That's what we need. We need to lock arms if we're going to defeat this.
There are many segments of society that aren't agreeing with that kind of unity. And you've had a brouhaha recently, even with the Greek Orthodox Church, where a letter was distributed and maybe he wasn't really knowing what was happening. There's all kinds of tales on how that went down, but it didn't bode well for the Christian community in terms of how the Christian community is being portrayed. How did you feel about what happened? I mean, this particular incident of the Greek Orthodox Church head coming out, and he was very, very vehemently against the Christian Zionists.
Well, look, we understand there's a lot of different pressures on different groups and different denominations that are out there. You have a group that's there. If I remember right, that group is led. That letter was led by somebody who's actually local there in Israel, in Jerusalem. It wasn't led by the church out of Greece or by There are several versions of the Orthodox Church. There's the Coptic Church and then the Greek and the Russian Orthodox and that. So it was kind of one-sided. It was unfortunate that that's the stance that they took. I'd probably think of maybe the reasons or why behind it. But look, we need to stand unified. We'll have members of the Coptic church, Orthodox Church, with us at NRB this year, and I can tell you that there's a solid standing there on Christian persecution and anti-Semitism, and so we're going to be looking at coming out with a few more joint statements with that. We're never going to avoid or get 100% complete, but I'd say by far the vast majority is in unity on these two issues.
The defense minister of Israel and the finance minister of Israel just came out and they talked about Judea and Samaria and changing the tone of law, the law itself, in terms of some kind of quasi look at sovereignty of Judea and Samaria. There are those that call the area West Bank, there are those that call it Judea and Samaria. What do you think is going to happen here? I mean, this is something that many of the Christians are saying it should be called Judea and Samaria. And then it's the
Oh, I
issue
think.
of then it's the
Go ahead.
issue of the politics and the age old predicament of why can't Jews buy land in areas where the Jews were living?
Well, look, politics has complicated this area so much, and outside influence, European influence messed it up to begin with. That's just my opinion, but it really, I think the best thing that really could happen is for all of the outside influence to get out of the way and let Israel and the local communities. I've heard a number of different proposals of some, city-state kind of governance within there, and we know it has to be resolved. We know we're not going to move millions of people out. But if you're going to stop and curve the radicalism that comes from the education and from the outside influences. I mean, look what the United Arab Emirates have done and how they've cracked down on the radicals within their own country and created a much more unified society there, where Arabs, Christians, and Jews are getting along, and that's the kind of structure it's going to take to make this. But I think Christians are solid, that this is Judea and Samaria. I was actually just teaching on this the other night when Jesus walked through there and he had the conversation with the Samaritan woman at Jacob's well. And we know even from that time who that land belonged to and who God had given it to. So Christians, I think, are more supportive of kind of unity solutions than I think even most politicians are. I think politicians, unfortunately, they're driven by so many other factors than just really solving the issue. They muddy the water. So my hope is that they get out of the way, let Israel and the local authorities solve this together.
Roy, we cannot be talking about politics without bringing up Iran. And the bottom line right now is meetings are going down. There's been a lot of shuttle diplomacy, a lot of grave concerns. And right now, what are your thoughts in terms of, is the president of the United States going to go forward and actually say it's our only chance? I need to attack Iran, save the region, because that's what many people do believe. And and if not, what does it look like?
Well, look, I have a close tie here for a couple of reasons. One, in the 1980s, when I served in the Navy, I spent 7.5 months in the Persian Gulf when Iran tried to shut it down back then and was going to shut the oil supply off. And the U.S. escorted tankers in and out. We did the first, several dozen of those escorts. So I know the coast of Iran all too well. Plus, when I was at Gateway in the tech industry, I had a group of Iranian folks that were here on visas that worked for me, and so I have a good understanding. And it's a sad thing because the crackdown that's gone on over there, and look, from what we're hearing, and I just heard from one of our Iran ministries that the tens of thousands of people who have been murdered through this crackdown, and right now tens, even hundreds of thousands of people who are stuck in their homes, can't get out and get food, have their electricity cut off, have had their water sources cut off. This is a human rights issue that the world should just be screaming about, just loudly scream. There should be so much world political pressure on Iran right now, and I don't understand why they get a pass. I don't know what's going on in the president's head, but boy, we sure do hope that he's going to step up. They've crossed his red line, that he's going to step up in a very powerful way and make the leadership of Iran not only pay for what they've done, but actually drive them to the negotiation table in a serious fashion, as much as you could take Iran serious.
It it absolutely impacts the entire region. I mean, we were interviewing with in Houthi-controlled areas in Yemen, and it was a soft poll. And one of the things that we found out is that a lot of the people there aligned with the protesters in Iran. So again, it's to say Yemen is then saved. And obviously, we were just talking about the Straits of Hormuz. So all of this comes to play. So it goes back to the question to you. Let's go back to the Hill for a minute, Troy. Where are the large voices on the Hill, even across both sides? Why aren't we hearing those voices?
I don't know why we're not hearing. We have been on the Hill. We have been trying to keep this issue in the forefront. We'll be making a statement about Iran, as I said, at NRB, trying to keep the pressure on both the legislative branch here and the executive branch to not forget about the Iranian people and to step in. And as you said, it's really beyond the Iranian people, because these proxies that they have, they're just as brutal and vicious on their populations as Iran is on its population. And so, getting Iran out of this position of having so much global influence is, look, I think it's going to save millions and millions of lives. around the globe. So it really needs to be top foreign policy priority right now.
I can't let you go. We have to talk about AI. You're talking about NRB and AI, and you're a techie, but really, Troy, the reality is today that AI and journalism is like water and vinegar. And, there are parts of it that are great, and there are parts of it that are not. Why don't we just take a moment to discuss that? Because it's a field that's near and dear to both of us, and I think it's important for the audience to understand what are we all stepping into.
There's a great line in the first Jurassic Park movie when Goldblum's character is talking about the DNA, the genetic coding that they did. And he has this line. He goes, "You were so worried about whether you could do it, you didn't stop to think about whether you should." I think that line falls under AI as well. I think right now we have the technologists who are moving so fast, trying to keep the innovation going on what they can do. They're not stopping to step back for a minute and think about, should we do it? Is this really going to be beneficial to society? We know that every tool is only as good as the people who design the tool and the people who use the tool. And so we really do, I think, and we're going to talk about this quite a bit at the convention. We do need to take a moment and step back and talk about this. For example, several of the issues that we have to deal with. What do we do with completely generated AI music? How does that work, especially when most of these models are learning from somebody? They're not creating, they're not the human spirit. They don't have that self creation. They have to take all this input, and then from that input, they create. So, how do we deal with that? How do we deal with sermons that pastors are doing that are AI created? Should we have AI virtual reality pastors? All of these issues are ethical concerns and moral concerns, even with some of the deep fakes that they're doing now in AI. So there's a lot of things here. You're exactly right. We need to step back and talk about, should we be doing this, rather than, hey, can we do it?
All right, the youth. We discussed this, and it's a year later. We had this conversation of where are they in terms of faith? Has it changed?
Yes, it has. I mean, a lot of indicators we've seen over the last year, especially unfortunately with the tragic murder of Charlie Kirk. But that had a big effect here in the US on a lot of youth. And we've seen a real resurgence in the youth who've been now inquiring. I'll call it inquiring into faith. We've seen attendance of churches increase. We've seen attendance to youth kind of events that have increased. We've seen a huge increase online presence of the younger generation searching media about faith and trying to understand faith. I think we're really starting to see there's an emptiness out there. There's a real hole in people, and they're finding out that the secular, pagan culture doesn't answer that, doesn't fill that hole. It really makes that hole bigger. It creates more divide, it creates more emptiness, it creates more loneliness for them. They become more skeptical, and they have a harder time with relations. And so I'm really excited about the possibilities this year of what we can do. Plus, we're seeing a real rise in youth producing media to reach their own generation, and it's a great creative time. It's a really creative group. This group has really grown up where they didn't have a time where media wasn't always present with them. So they know how to use it. They know how to communicate. So I'm really excited. I think more for this year than I'm pessimistic.
You got a lot on your plate, and I think that it'll be interesting to see how everything comes together. Most important, looking forward to you unveiling step by step all of the different exciting events that are going to take place throughout the NRB, and that the world gets an understanding of what is Christian media, because I think there's a lack of understanding of what Christian media actually does.
Well, I would totally agree with you that Christian media may be one of the most well kept secrets out there. There's a lack of understanding. Plus, we fight a huge bias and marginalization in the digital world and even in the traditional broadcasting world. People aren't just jumping all over themselves to add Christian media to their cable networks or to their streaming platforms. And so there's a lot of bias we deal with. But it's also, as I said, it's a great time to be a communicator because now it's easier than ever to get into the industry, to start becoming a podcaster or a YouTube channel or whatever it is you want to start. It's an easy time to do it. But we've talked about this a lot. We have to also teach this generation about journalism and integrity and truth over, the number of likes or how much influence you have, because it's really easy to get drawn in to, popularism rather than, communicating the message that people need to hear.
I think I'm going to add one more to that while we're at it, and that's my opinion. It's media ethics. And I think there's a real lack of understanding what is media, and there are ethics in this field. And I think a lot of that has gone to, to pot, literally. It's just gone. Where is it today?
It's gone. You said it's gone. The whole idea of journalistic ethics, especially in the news media today, most of our mainstream news media and legacy media, they're simply propaganda houses. They really don't do real journalism. There's not going on. They don't actually present the facts to people and let people make the decisions up. They're all pretty much opinion pieces or editorialized pieces out there, or just look, simple propaganda. There's no other way to say it, pushing the ideologies that are at the top of these organizations. And so we really do have to get back to that idea that, in the US, we used to say that was the fourth leg of the stool between the executive branch, judicial branch, the legislative branch, and then the press, provided that extra balance. But today, the press doesn't provide that because they're usually on one side of the aisle or the other, and we need to get a free press that's uninfluenced and unadulterated from the world around it.
Well, I couldn't agree with you on that more. And there's a lot to do, a lot of work, Troy. I wish you a lot of success. Thank you for taking time always on the media line.
Thanks for having me.